with me, Dan Edwards, and hopefully tonight we'll have lots of conversation with headteacherchat.com and a good leader, a friend of mine, Jay Davenport, and we're going to be talking all about working together, collaboration, and leading in uncertain times. So join me, take part in the chat, and let's speak soon.
From Leicester, this is The Late Show with Dan Edwards on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Tuesday evening. It is 8 p.m. and we're here for another Late Show with me, Dan Edwards. And I'm so pleased already that people are joining into the Podbean app where I can see people are joining in the conversation. So I'm really pleased to be joined again, as ever, by lots of people across a wide variety of listening platforms. I know that we go out obviously on Twitter, we go out on YouTube, and of course as well, if you're not listening to this live, you can always listen back at your own leisure and go to the Podbean app and download. So what is Tuesday Late Show all about? Well, it's all about having a conversation as we just get to the midweek point of Wednesday. And of course, as we hurtle towards the summer term, it's always nice just to grab a moment and reflect and chat on what we've been up to so far this week. And what a week it's been. We've been absolutely spoiled with another glorious sunshine. No more wet breaks and wet lunches and that tragic time of trying to make sure that people are busy as it actually teams it down outside. We're in the summer term and hopefully tags and CAGs have been completed. I know that primary colleagues were getting to the point where the celebration events will have been taking place, and hopefully, who knows, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we can, maybe we won't, but hopefully we might be able to do things a little bit differently towards the end of the term. But how are you? How are you? That's the most important thing. So as ever, before we introduce our guests later this evening, let's have a quick chat and see who's in the room, and let's see who's out there for conversation. I can see that we've got lots of people with me, and don't forget, if you do want to communicate with our guests or get involved in the conversation, you can always leave a message in the chat function of the Podbean app. But also, more importantly, you can call in and have a conversation with me live on Teachers Talk Radio. And obviously, when our guests come on board, you can join them as well in the conversation. So let me introduce my guests. Well, I'm really excited to be joined by these two people. Later this evening, I'm going to be joined by leader Jay Davenport, who is principal in Northamptonshire. And Jay is a regular contributor to obviously Edu Twitter. He's a big part of the Northamptonshire education area and sets up NED Talks and all of those things. So he's a collaborator. He's out there developing CPD for people to get involved, but also generally all-round good egg. And we're going to be talking to Jay about his experience of leading a school over the last academic year, things that he's looking forward to, how he's been leading in a crisis, the things that he's had to deal with and challenges. And maybe, just maybe, you may have shared some of these experiences with Jay. So it'd be nice to have a conversation if you're a leader out there, middle, senior, head teacher, or you aspire to be a leader. Maybe it might be a good chat to tune in later. I don't know, probably about 8:45, 9 o'clock, as we finish the show with Jay Davenport, who'll be calling in straight after, I believe, something quite special. He's told me he can't join the show straight away because he's doing something quite interesting. And I'm sure Jay will be very kind to reveal all as we go through the show later this evening. Now, I'm also going to be joined by another guest. Now, those of you who are on Twitter will have noticed an account that keeps cropping up, and I've noticed it probably over the last few months, but that's headteacherchat.com. And I've always been amazed by, obviously, Head Teacher Chat and their Twitter account. It shares a lot of information. It really kind of gets people talking, asking for advice on behalf of the head teachers and leaders. But most importantly, it's there celebrating the work of lots and lots of teachers and leaders across, obviously, the Twitter sphere. So I'm going to be talking to the people behind, well, one half of the people behind Head Teachers Chat, what it's all about, talking about developing really good professional networks, and making sure we find out what's going on with Head Teacher Chat, where's it going, what's it looking to do, and most importantly, get involved with the conversation that's taking place on Twitter and the collaboration as well. So I'll be joining them later. Now, before we do anything, it's only important that we take time to reflect on the current news in the educational world. And so after the news, I'll be calling in and having a chat with Head Teacher Chat. I will also be connecting with Jay Davenport, if he's available, away from his exciting opportunity or what he's been doing with staff. And of course, you've got the opportunity to join in the conversation as well by text or in the chat function or calling in. So before we go away, before we go to the news, I'm going to ask a quick question. I'd love people to just leave in the message box on the Podbean app how your week was. And if you could summarize your week so far in 3 words and pop that in the message, we can read those out and get the conversation going. So maybe you've been blown away by so far the hysteria for Euro 2020, the year late football tournament. Maybe like me, have anguished over the weekend listening to England's tragic collapse in the 2 test series with New Zealand. Or most importantly, you've just had a great weekend relaxing in the sun, trying to move away from the tags and cags in your secondary school or the assessment and the final report writing and checking over the course of the last few weeks. So tell us what you've been up to. Leave a message, 3 words. What's it been like so far? What are you looking forward to next week? Have you got anything exciting in your academic calendar moving forward? So before we do that, and I'd love to chat with more people this week, we're going to go over to the news with Megan Good, and we're going to find all what's going on in the world of education for this week. And already we've had a response. Busy, mad, but exciting. 3 words, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there who would probably agree with you. It's busy, it's mad, but it's exciting and lots of fun. But until then, here's news with Megan Good.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. The latest modelled data from the Office for National Statistics has led to calls from school leaders to prioritise vaccinations for anyone over the age of 12. The data highlighted that students in years 7 to 11 in secondary schools had the highest infection rate of any age group, with 1 case in every 210 on the 2nd of June. At the start of May, the same age group's rate was over 4 times lower. One professor of infectious diseases at the University of Edinburgh, Mark Woolhouse, doesn't think the increased infection rate is a cause for concern just yet, saying, "If the Delta variant is much more transmissible in children, it might raise the R number in schools above 1, and then you would consistently start to see larger outbreaks more frequently in schools. So far, I don't think the PHE data are convincing on that. Yes, there are outbreaks in schools, but it's a tiny fraction of them." The Children's Commissioner has said that the ease of access for children to online pornography is a key factor in the normalising of sexual harassment in schools. Dame Rachel de Souza stated, "One area I'm clear on is that online hardcore pornography warps boys' expectations of normal relationships and normalises behaviours that girls are then expected to accept, and it's just too easy for children to access." She has called for internet companies to introduce more restrictions on what children can access online, and also plans to work with tech companies, law enforcement, children's charities and schools on how to make children safer online. the Duchess of Cambridge and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden met for the first time last week as they visited Connor Downs Academy in Cornwall. They have since written a joint article stating the importance of early education for children. The letter, published by CNN, said, "If we care about how children perform at school, how they succeed in their careers when they are older, and about their lifelong mental and physical health, then we have to care about how we are nurturing their brains, their experiences and relationships in the early years before school." That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Live from Leicester.
We know we're live from Leicester. It looks like my repeat loop of my technical jingles has gone into overdrive, but no, interesting. And again, as a primary leader, I think it's great that we're championing the early years and really thinking about the things that we do in children in their early part of education. So we've had a few people joining the chat, and don't forget you can obviously get involved. And thank you to Callum for sharing the show. It's really important that you can share the show out there on your Twitter, on your Facebook, so you can really make sure that we can really start the conversation flowing. Head teacher chat, before we've even started and having a conversation, all good here, busy, hectic and hot. So 2 people already have said it's been a busy few weeks. Well, that's what we've come to learn and possibly love in the summer term. It's just that end of termness where lots of things are going on, but most importantly, it's a chance to reflect and celebrate with our children. I suppose really what has been a very tricky year for lots of people. So we get into the final part of it where we can really hopefully reflect one another and really think about all the things that we've managed to achieve during this time. So yeah, busy, hectic and hot, I'm sure. So lots of people are joining the studio. Thank you again for Callum for sharing the show. So how do you connect with Head Teacher Chat? We'll come on to that later, but Teachers Talk Radio. Of course, you can join the Podbean app and look for the Teachers Talk Radio shows. You can also go to the website, www.ttradio.org. And of course, you can follow Teachers Talk Radio on Twitter by looking for them on the Twitter sphere. I'm sure lots of people are following the account now, which is really fantastic. And of course, as well, we're always looking for more hosts. I think there's a number of slots coming up available, and we've got lots and lots of teachers and educators joining the conversation, getting involved, sharing and talking and developing ideas. So if you do want to find more about Teachers Talk Radio, on Twitter, it's at TT Radio 2021, and you can join already the 4,851 followers that we have. So there's lots and lots of fantastic shows available to you, lots of amazing guests, some really good conversation taking place. So please feel free to join it. And of course, you can always listen back to all of the shows as a podcast at your own leisure, driving to and back from work, on your daily commute, and taking part in that discussion as well. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm Dan Edwards _77, and you can obviously follow myself on Twitter, and I can tell you all about the shows that are coming up and my guests that are there. So as I wait now very patiently for my first guest to call in, I'm going to be talking with headteacherchat.com, an account that's developing a great rate on Twitter, and again an account that I really enjoy following. But the reason I enjoy following it is because there's such a great conversation coming out of Head Teacher Chat. It's hosted by Lucy and Jonathan. That's developing a network of edu companies, leadership coaching, etc., and already with over 19,000 followers, it really is becoming very, very quickly a Twitter account that not only develops conversation and brokers conversation, but celebrates people and celebrates what's going on with good practice up and down the country. So fantastic to headteacherchat.com, and they'll be joining me in a couple of minutes where we can be finding all about the account, what's the kind of the main aim as we go from there. So I am going to go to a speaker. I'm interested. No, we've gone off so far. So if you do want to get involved, I'll be speaking to Head Teachers Chat in a couple of minutes' time. So we'll be waiting them to call in, and we're going to find all about what they're doing. And there's lots and lots of people on Twitter at the moment developing conversation and having hashtag conversations. A little bit of a shameless plug on behalf of myself and Kate Jones, who have been doing the hosting a regular hashtag Saturday Ed Chat on Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. So if you have already caught up with your Teachers Talk radio shows, you can always join me and Kate on the Twitter sphere on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock for hashtag Saturday Ed Chat. And that's taking place in Twitter Spaces. So that's really exciting. And we'd love to make sure that you're available with us. Saturday Ed Chat is great. Thank you very, very much. And it is just an idea. And we're talking about collaboration today. And we're talking about, obviously, the power of social media. And we're going to find out about Head Teachers Chat. But it really is an opportunity, isn't it, over the course of this year, through lockdown, through all of the changes and challenges we've had, and through isolation, being away from our colleagues and not having the opportunity to visit schools as freely as we possibly should or could have done in the past. It's been great to really connect with people online. And I know that through this piece of work, and obviously through blogging and all of the things that everybody has been doing up and down the across lots of different schools, it's been really, really fantastic to see people joining the Saturday Ed Chat and just extending that conversation. And again, I'm going to be talking to Jay Davenport later in the show, who's a principal over in Northamptonshire, and he's going to tell us all a little bit about Ned Talks as well, something that he's a big part of with the Northampton education scene over there. And we're going to be, like I say, finding out all about collaboration as well, about headteacherchat.com. So we'll just be waiting for our guests to call in, and then we'll be catching up with them later in the show. So I do hope everybody's had a good week. I'm sure that lots of our schools are alive with the sound of sport, as they usually are. Have you been watching the football in your schools? Have you been celebrating? And I'd love to find out. So I'm just going to connect now with my first guest, headteacherchat.com. And I believe we have Jonathan with us from Head Teachers Chat. Jonathan, are you with us?
I am. How are you?
Good evening, Jonathan. This is first of all, I'm very pleased because we have connected quite a lot on Twitter in our Twitter guises, but I've never been able to put your name and your voice to the Head Teacher Chat account. So have you happy welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And over the course of the show, we're going to be joined by another head teacher, Jay Davenport. I don't know if you've connected with him, but we're going to be talking about collaboration within leadership and developing, professional learning networks. But Jonathan, before we start, let's just find out a little bit about Head Teacher Chat. And how long have you been on Twitter, and where did this idea all start from?
Well, we've been on Twitter about 8 years now. And it started when I was in a senior leadership role, a deputy head in a school, and I wanted to find out more about being a head teacher. So I started asking questions, and it all stemmed from that. I was a head teacher until last September. I've been a head teacher for 4 years in a lovely school up in Norfolk. And it's all about curiosity and finding out about things. And I'm really curious by nature. So I'm wanting to find out about new products, new people, connect, making people aware of what we can do and how we can support other head teachers. Because sometimes it can be a bit of a lonely job. And Twitter is a great place to actually find out things. And that's what we're trying to do.
So just going back to your head teacher journey and your journey into teaching, I mean, it's always nice to have a little bit of context with our guests and to try and just kind of encapsulate, how you got into being in your role. So where did your educational journey start, Jonathan? And was it a natural progression to headship? Did you go to, did you teacher training, then into a teaching post and that natural progression, or what was it like to you kind of moving into that position, and what was your background before moving on to Head Teacher Chat?
Well, I started teaching in South London a long time ago. It's about 26 years ago now. And I was in a lovely school called Rockmount Primary in Croydon. And I was there for about 4 years, and I moved up to middle management very quickly. I did PE, I did maths coordinator, all those fun things to do. And then I moved to Norfolk just over 20 years ago now, when my children were small. And I went to a couple of schools, first of all, an infant school, and then I moved on to a primary school as deputy head. And then I had an exciting time when I helped an academy trust and support schools around Norfolk and Suffolk. Then I became a head teacher 4 years ago, and yeah, it was a great job, one of the best jobs in the world, but I just felt I wanted to help and support head teachers more. And last year, the opportunity to come and develop Head Teacher Chat and make it a more supportive role for head teachers, new head teachers in schools. So we have coaching that we provide for school leaders. We do the Twitter which sort of, number one is helping education companies. We know as head teachers, we are time poor. And what I wanted to do is go out to the education companies, find out about them. So then we could actually talk to head teachers and say, have you actually tried this company? Because there's some fantastic companies out there that are doing great things for schools and really can be helpful for schools. But head teachers don't have the time to find out about them. So we wanted to broker that part. And then we do the Twitter questions and helping people, because we have a lot of head teachers who are new in role, and we want to give them a voice on Twitter, because quite easily they can get lost. So most days we have questions from different senior leaders, how to do this, how to do that, and we post them at 7:30 every night. And hopefully then we can develop their way around Twitter and give them a voice that they need.
I think that's really powerful. I know that I've been, and I've been very lucky to be followed by yourself, and obviously, being connected with yourself as well. I do really feel that what you've done, and again, it's like you said, it's so important for leaders, but also an opportunity to just people to connect if they're aspirant head teachers as well, or aspirant leaders. I think what you've done is those questions have really allowed people to connect with more people on Twitter. So it's been a really, really positive thing. Just thinking back to your experience as a head teacher, Jonathan, were you kind of getting involved in social media at that time, or did you feel that actually that as a leader that you could have, it was important for you to connect a bit more, or did you have that connection available, or was it from experience and thinking, crikey, if I had the opportunity to connect with more head teachers, that would be really, really beneficial? I mean, did you connect previously in the realms of social media when you were ahead?
Yeah, I did. It was always something. Again, it's that time poor bit. It's sort of like it's having the time to really understand what's going on, whose work, what things are out there, and what blogs are out there to read, because there's some fantastic things. I love your blogs, by the way. I think
thank you. That's very, very kind.
Your donut one is great, and I would use that in schools. I just think they're well written, relevant for school leaders. But that goes back to the point. If I wasn't on Twitter, I wouldn't know that your blogs would be around. And actually, it's promoting that one. When we started on Twitter, Lucy, who's works on Head Teacher Chat as well, she got in contact with Alison Peacock, Dame Alison Peacock.
Yeah.
And it was amazing that we could speak to her and go and visit her school and talk to her on Twitter and in real life and find out about how to do things. So it is so powerful. And we did do those connections, and right from day one of that, building up those questions. And the people on Twitter, there's some amazing people, inspirational people. It's just a joy to watch how some people are actually working and what they do in their schools. It's incredible.
So you're obviously developing lots and lots of support packages for head teachers, but one of the things I have been very aware of, Jonathan, if I'm honest, because you also have a very, very I'm going to say this now, beautiful Instagram account, which is normally populated by lots of beautiful pictures of the countryside, nature. Now, I believe are these where you're based? Photos from your local area and going out and about as well?
Yeah, they're round the corner from where we live. We've got a beautiful part of the world called the Yare Valley, and we walk there every day. You've probably seen a few pictures of Bramble, the dog, a bit too often, but there you go. Yeah, and we think it's that well-being is so important for our teachers, and actually having that space to go out to walk, and in some ways it's modeling what we should be doing and how we should support each other and say actually it's okay to go for a walk in the evening. I love your pictures of was it a run recently or something?
It was a run. If it was that one which was surrounded by lots and lots of cows, that was a run. And that short segment of field was probably the fastest part of the run altogether, because although the cows were stationary, the menace in their eyes was something of brought a mild sense of panic as I kept looking over my shoulder, wondering if they were slightly moving behind me and trying to creep up behind me as we go on. But just going back to that well-being side of things, from your work and obviously speaking with other head teachers and obviously, you know, connecting, do you reflect on your own career as a head teacher and see things of how you could have, you know, we all reflect to look at the things that we could always improve on in our careers and the way that we could have, you know, may have done things better. I mean, were you at that point advocating everything that you advocate now as a head teacher, Jonathan, or possibly like myself, we're always the ones to, you know, tell people what best to do, but we're also sometimes at the mercy of our own kind of, you know, we practice a lot of telling people how best to look after their well-being, but we don't necessarily look after ours. I mean, were you, you know, was well-being something that you managed to maintain, or is it only really now that you kind of, when you're talking about well-being with leaders, do you kind of look back and go, maybe my well-being wasn't as good? Or were you one of those heads who are just able to find that clear, divisive bit of time and, you know, be able to master both the art of working and well-being?
I would have to say that I struggled at times to work on the well-being, and in some ways now I can look back and actually think what sort of things I could put in place, how I could do things, making sure that I had time for it. It is a time poor job, and unfortunately you don't have all the hours in the day to do all those things. Now I have the time to do more of those things, but we did try and make sure we walked and we run, we tried to eat healthily, but there were long hours. So sometimes there were times that well-being wasn't on top of my focus. Yeah.
So I suppose now, you know, when you're talking to leaders, you can speak from that sense of authority and say, look, you know, this is, you know, you need to make sure that you're concentrating on those things, because you can speak from a point of sometimes when you kind of go, look, sometimes it wasn't great. And sometimes I think we all can look on, crikey, that was a week where I kind of neglected myself, probably, you know, not for the betterment of my role and my post as well. So I'm going to come on to these beautiful artifacts that you're producing. I'm not going to go too much into detail about these wonderful things that you're creating, but is nature and that kind of sense of, you know, natural well-being, that sense of space, that sense of reflection, is that a big part of, you know, not only Head Teacher Chat, but also the Head Teachers website and the services that you do?
Exactly. And the planners that we created was from being a head teacher. It's actually, I had time to actually make my own planner now. That was the difference. At the time of being a head teacher, I wished I had a planner, because it's a place where you can put everything. So you can put all your notes, all your diary dates, all those little bits of conversations that people are having down the corridor about something that's happened, your lesson observation, brief notes of what's happened. So it's a working notebook, but we've designed it in a way that you can use it all day, every day. And yeah, we we worked very hard to actually produce them. We got a graphic designer to actually do all the layouts of them. We got an artist to do the front covers and all the inside covers, and it's taken a lot of time to work out precisely what's in them. But yeah, we're getting good feedback from head teachers saying that they use them all the time. And it is just that trying to put everything in one place. I mean, I'm not quite sure as what you're like as a head teacher, but do you get post-it notes flying at you all the time with different things that you have to be here and have to be there?
Jonathan, I am a slave to the black notebook. I have a little notebook that I carry around with me, and I might be looking to upgrade to a planner, so I might be speaking to you after this conversation. But no, I think one of the things, and you're quite right, I mean, we are in a profession, and for teachers as well, you know, for all members of staff in their career stage, we're on the receiving end of so much information, you know, conversations here, you know, with parents, with other pupils, things that happen. You know, if we think about the amount of information that we take in on a day-to-day basis and the things that we have to remember, you know, there's so much of that cognitive load that we can carry about. So I learned very, very quickly in my early days as an assistant principal. And one of my many friends, and again, an ex-guest of this show, Mrs. T Coaching, she's on Twitter, please follow her. She was my head teacher at the time, and I remember having a very, very problematic May. I was a year 6 teacher, assistant principal, obviously in charge of SATs and seeing all of those things, and I just dropped the ball. I didn't drop one ball, Jonathan. I kind of dropped every single one with the accompanying plates that I was spinning. And I learned very, very quickly that I can't carry it all in my head. And that only kind of continues up in your profession and your career. So I see lots of teachers getting into really good practice of having the notebook. And I know that that's something that I would never, ever be without. And I religiously go out and buy the same, this sounds really strange, but I go out and buy the same type of black notebook and the same set of 20 pencils. I write in pencil because, you know, as you said, you know, it is a time restricted profession, and having something to document your day, reflect on that day as well, is really powerful to the well-being. And I think, you know, what you're trying to do with obviously the products that you're developing is really important. So I think, first of all, thank you for that. And if people do want to browse your collection, where will they find these beautiful, and they are beautiful because they all center back to the love of nature that's on your Instagram account, and they're beautifully designed, and they feel very, you know, have well-being at the heart of things. So where can they find all of your fantastic designs, and where can people order them from, Jonathan?
They can order them from our website, which is headteachers.org, and there's a shop on there. We have a planner for head teacher, executive head teacher, head of school. We've got Senko, we've got principal, deputy head, and assistant head. They are designed for leadership roles because at the back of them, you have notes for your SEF, your school development plan, CPD notes. You have even got an assembly rotor that you can put all your assemblies on. So it is purposely designed by us as senior leaders for senior leaders.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And just out of interest, I know that Jay is going to be joining us shortly, and I do hope you stay on the call, Jonathan, because I think, you know, both you and Jay, we can have a good conversation about, you know, where we are as in education moving forward. But just out of interest, you're obviously receiving lots of questions from different leaders, and you're obviously doing your 7:30 questions that go out, and I know that you're tagging lots of other head teachers to start developing this sort of Twitter hive mind, I call it.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a kind of, and I'm sure as much you want to vary the questions you put out on Twitter, but do you find that there is a developing trend of the type of questions that people are asking? Are there themes that people you're getting kind of questions around a particular theme or an aspect of education? And Yeah, and again, out of interest, from you having the questions, what kind of what are you noticing? What are you noticing as some of the things that people really do want to find out more about?
It's a whole range of things, really. It's sometimes within the context of their own school, what they're looking at. So there might be some HR questions. We had one the other day. Who do we talk to about a particular situation that's happening in their lives? And it was anonymous things, and the responses from the Twitter, Edu Twitter, was fantastic and really supportive of what they were wanting to do. And then we have a whole range of ones. I think my favorite one recently was a question about interviews. What is the most bizarre thing that's happened in the interview? There was one person who started knitting during the interview. I'd never had that. I had someone break out into a song, but I've never had anyone knitting and saying how wonderful they are knitting for one of their job interviews. It's a whole bizarre things. What's the strangest thing you've had in an interview?
The strangest thing I've had in an interview, crikey. Nothing that comes to mind, but I do find myself some of the interviews that I've taken part in myself as an applicant, some of them going wildly wrong, especially as a drama teacher. You would go in and teach a drama lesson with the assumption that everybody would know you as their greatest drama teacher, but falling flat on your face a number of times as well. So I've had a few shockers, I must admit. Was like when I was kind of looking for, applying for drama teacher jobs. So I must admit there were certain lessons where I may have been the strangest thing in the room altogether. But no, I think it's fantastic with, what you're doing and the questions and the professional networks that you seem to be developing, Jonathan. I think I can only thank you on behalf of all the people that you connect with regularly. And just thank you for starting, developing further conversation on Twitter. And again, opening the floor to head teachers to have that sense of sharing good practice and developing ideas, but also that humorous side of things of when we talk about the strangest things that happen in the interview. So I just want to say thank you very much. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the news, and then I'd like you to stay around with my next guest, Jay Davenport, as well. But before we go to the news, Jonathan, where can people find you? On Twitter, on Instagram, where are the social media links out there that people can get in contact? Head teacher or not, I do think your Twitter account brings lots of conversation. So whereabouts are you available on the social media sphere?
So we are at Head Teacher Chat on Instagram and on Twitter. We also got a Facebook group, which is groups at Head Teacher Chat. So if you're a senior leader, it's a private group, so you have to go through all the questions to get into it. But we hopefully on there are quite supportive to other senior leaders and head teachers. So Head Teacher Chat.
Brilliant. And your Instagram page as well, which I must admit is a joy to follow. So what's the link for that, Jonathan?
Well, Instagram at Head Teacher Chat. I would like to take all the credit, but I think most of the credit of the Instagram page will have to go to Lucy.
And Bramble the dog.
And Bramble. Well, he doesn't take too many photos recently.
No, but he's quite the star in some of them as well. And if anybody wants to have a little bit of well-being before they wake up, scrolling through some of your pictures just starts the day perfectly. And it seems that you're very much interested, awakened by a nice early morning walk. So that's another good thing as well.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, thanks for talking. Stay on the line if that's okay with you. We'd love to keep you talking with us, and when my next guest Jay joins, we'd love to have you feel part of the conversation. Is that okay with you?
That's fine, more than welcome.
Brilliant. So I'm going to go to the news now, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes with my next guest Jay Davenport, and Jonathan from Head Teacher Chat will also be around as well. So stay tuned. Feel free to share the show. Feel free to leave a message in the message section on the Podbean app. Remember, three words to describe your day. Jonathan, you've already contributed with hot, busy, hectic, and hot. Yeah. I've already started to put exciting, tiring, and rereading, which is all to do with the joys of report reading at this time. Anyway, so we're going to go to the news, and we're going to be back with Jay and Jonathan in a short while. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. The latest modelled data from the Office for National Statistics has led to calls from school leaders to prioritise vaccinations for anyone over the age of 12. The data highlighted that students in years 7 to 11 in secondary schools had the highest infection rate of any age group, with one case in every 210 on the 2nd of June. At the start of May, the same age group's rate was over 4 times lower. One professor of infectious diseases at the University of Edinburgh, Mark Woolhouse, doesn't think the increased infection rate is a cause for concern just yet, saying, "If the Delta variant is much more transmissible in children, it might raise the R number in schools above 1, and then you would consistently start to see larger outbreaks more frequently in schools. So far, I don't think the PHE data are convincing on that. Yes, there are outbreaks in schools, but it's a tiny fraction of them." The Children's Commissioner has said that the ease of access for children to online pornography is a key factor in the normalising of sexual harassment in schools. Dame Rachel de Souza stated, "One area I'm clear on is that online hardcore pornography warps boys' expectations of normal relationships and normalises behaviours that girls are then expected to accept, and it's just too easy for children to access." She has called for internet companies to introduce more restrictions on what children can access online, and also plans to work with tech companies, law enforcement, children's charities and schools on how to make children safer online. The Duchess of Cambridge and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden met for the first time last week as they visited Connor Downs Academy in Cornwall. They have since written a joint article stating the importance of early education for children. The letter, published by CNN, said, "If we care about how children perform at school, how they succeed in their careers when they are older, and about their lifelong mental and physical health, then we have to care about how we are nurturing their brains, their experiences and relationships in the early years before school." That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
So welcome back to those people who have joined us from the top of the hour at 8 o'clock, and welcome to the Late Show on Teachers Talk Radio with me, Dan Edwards. And don't forget, if you have just joined us, you can always listen back to the show via the podcast or via the Podbean app or wherever you get your podcast from. You can also listen back to all of the shows on the Teachers Talk Radio website, which is here I'm looking through my notes. How unprofessional. Can you hear this? This is me looking through notes, which is terrible. Anyway, it's www.ttradio.org. And you can find out all about the conversation that I've been having with headteacherschat.com, the Twitter account which connects head teachers and leaders, and a part of headteachers.org, their website, which offers lots and lots of services for head teachers. I'll be talking to Jonathan there about his journey into teaching and what Head Teachers Chat is trying to do. Now, I'm always delighted to be joined by people who I have grown to appreciate through social media. And as someone who enjoys Twitter as a way of connecting with other leaders and teachers and educators, it's always nice to connect with people that you find that you've got an instant connection with. And I've been very, very lucky to back in October to be asked to take part in a NED Talks. Now, unfortunately, back in autumn, lots of things were going around school. Now, obviously, one of those things was COVID. Unfortunately, myself, I caught COVID. I was unable to take part in Ned Talks. But we're going to talk to Jay Davenport, a head teacher from Northamptonshire, and we're going to be joined again by Jonathan from Head Teachers Chat. We're going to be talking a little bit about leading in rather unusual circumstances, and especially coming to the end of this summer term and reflecting on everything we've gone through as leaders. We're going to be talking about CPD as well, and what Jay has been trying to do with his staff to make sure that they feel supported and well looked after during this very turbulent year. So firstly, welcome back, Jonathan. Welcome back to you, Jonathan. I hope you're well and you're still with us. And welcome to the show to Mr. Jay Davenport. How are you both?
I'm very well, thank you, Dan. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
I can hear you loud and clear. Now,
Okay,
Jay, you're a little bit late, so tell me where you've been.
I've been having a wonderful day today, involved in PE interviews, SLT meetings, and then we've got these little things called CAGs going on, which I don't know whether you've heard of those, but there's something going on in secondary schools at the moment where we're involved in a process. And so we've been spending some time looking at those, and then kind of family stuff and trying to pick up kids and get them to the right place at the right time. So
now, Jay, am I right in saying you've been doing these, having a bit of a CAGS review meeting with pizza? Was this correct?
That's right. That was this evening. I've left them to it to come back to sort of do some family things and talk to you guys.
Now, so Jay, I know that we've spoken briefly, and we've been managed to even talk to each other face to face this week, albeit by the power of Zoom. But you know, pizza for your staff while they're doing these CAGs and all of this massive centre assessed grades and teacher assessed grades. I know that speaking to you, that well-being and your staff mean a great deal to you, and you go above and beyond, really, don't you, in your school, in regards to looking after your staff team and the things you do to make life as a teacher and an educator a little bit easier. Can you just tell us about before you come on to your school culture currently? This is one thing I don't know about you, Jay, and obviously we have connected through Twitter and we've met, but how did you get into, how did you get to where you were currently? I mean, as a leader of the school, what was your journey into education like? I
think it was kind of dull in many ways, in the sense that I followed a well-trodden path. I was the son of two teachers who were, I think any parents who are teachers are kind of desperate for their kids to do anything other than teach, even though they say it's a great profession. I wanted to be a professional footballer, like probably lots of people that age, but it was never going to be quick enough to do that. The one thing I lacked was probably ability. And so I had to change quickly into thinking what I'd like. And I went on a year 10 work experience to have a look at what quantity surveying was like, and decided over those 2 weeks that I wanted to spend a great proportion of my life outside. And so trained to be a PE teacher at St Luke's in Exeter in the early 90s, and then through a very traditional route of kind of school teacher development, NQT years, 3-4 years in Bath, then moved back to the Big Smoke in London, up as head of department in Milton Keynes, an assistant head, became a deputy in a very large secondary and senior deputy there before moving on to headship back in Northamptonshire. And so the school I'm currently in, Manor School in Raunds, as part of the Nen Education Trust, is very similar to the school that I went to, and it's full of lots of students who kind of have had a similar background to myself, and so I'm kind of determined to try and make a difference to people who are like me, I guess.
When you came to your school, Joe, was it where you wanted it to be? Or have you done a lot of work in regards to developing the culture that you we'll come on to in a little bit, because I know I'm really massively impressed by some of the things you do for your staff. But was it where it was, or was it a lot of work that you've had to do as the leader there?
I hope I'm allowed to say it's both of those things. So Manor's always been a good school. But there's kind of different interpretations of good, and different priorities are important at various times. And I think that I wanted to create a different sort of culture. Perhaps there was nothing particularly wrong with the culture that was there, but we just needed to create some different aspects of the work, in my view. And I think that's one of the things about kind of headship, isn't it, is that you use the experiences that you've had, you do as much reading, you use the networks of the people that you've got, and you probably learn in that journey I've just described. I probably learned as much from people who I didn't want to be like and I didn't want to replicate as I did from great people, mentors, colleagues, peers, and people that have led myself. And you pick up all of those experiences and models, and kind of define your own educational philosophy, and it's always being refined, and that's what I think is great about the kind of collaborative aspects, is that you can really start to mold your own thinking, and if you can keep open-minded to change and those sorts of things, then you can really have an impact, I hope. So there was definitely things that I wanted it to be different. There were certainly things that I wanted to keep. I think it was important to recognise and listen more than talk, particularly in the early stages, about and observe and make sure I kind of had a really good feel for not only what was going on in the school, but also the context of the school and the community and the situation in which it sat.
Brilliant. Jay, I'm just going to introduce Jonathan. Jonathan, are you still with us? Are you there?
I am, yeah. That's quite interesting, because I came from a PE background. I did a PE degree at St Mary's, so sounds like a very similar path that with Jay there.
So Jay Davenport, Jonathan from headteacherschat.com, Twitter feed that's connecting lots of head teachers. Before you came on, Joe, I was speaking to Jonathan about the things that headteachers.org, the website that Jonathan runs, and the headteacherchat.com, and talking about obviously the time pressures for leaders, the pressure of the we know that time is so precious for all of our staff. And Jonathan, I really want to, just to put you in tune with Jay, because I think, Jay, when I've spoken to you also recognise that time and the gift of time is a big thing for your staff, and you go above and beyond in making time a bit more available for your staff to be able to refresh and recharge and to make their day a little bit more bearable. So Jay, can you just talk to and share with listeners the things that you do in your school to make time something which is a bit more of a freely available option to some of your staff? Because I've always been really jealous of not working at your school, because you do some great things. So please share with us the things you do, because I think it's inspirational.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that whenever you speak to teachers, I think that time, if it's not the thing, it's certainly within the top 2 or 3 things that if you talk about barriers to personal, professional growth or any of those kind of aspects. And so I think that perhaps sometimes where we go wrong with well-being and the kind of whole notion of well-being is that we do more things. We put in well-being aspects of our work, and that's not necessarily, in my view, the most helpful thing when we're constantly, if we're doing that listening aspect I said about before, the thing that we should be hearing is that time is one of the key factors in it, and so there's a whole host of things to unpick around that, I suppose, isn't there? Because you can just do less. In the first place, and I think that schools should be relatively straightforward things, but we make them really complex by putting lots of stuff into the system. And so we were really clear to begin with that what we wanted to do was we wanted our teachers to plan great lessons, deliver great lessons, and give good feedback. And anything that kind of got in the way of that was stuff that we needed to try and do something about if we could. And of course, there's things around assessment and marking and all of those things that come into it. And so we went actually to a DFE wellbeing workload kind of conference, and a school that was presenting there, it went through some of the things that they did. And as they were speaking, we said, well, we do all of those. And then in the car on the way back from there, we just made a list of all of the things that we think that we did already about in order to enhance well-being. And one of the things that came to the fore was that lots of them were about improving the amount of time that teachers had to do things. And so once we started to refine the list, we and went out to staff and we talked about the things that we did. Then we ended up with what we called the Man of 55, but it was basically 55 things that we did as a school in order to look after people's well-being at that stage. And since then, we've refined it and increased it. But all of the add-ons are around increasing time. And at our school, the drivers are work, world, and wellness because of a question that we asked of all of our community and staff and students when I first arrived, which was, what do we want our students to look like 5 years after they've left? And the things that came back were happy, healthy, positive view of the world, and employable. And when we added that to our context, we ended up with work, world, and wellness. But that's not the drive. It is the driver for curriculum. But it's also the drive for everything we do. And our Man of 55 comes in those three sections. So work is about workload reduction. World is about high quality CPD and training, and then well-being or wellness is around some of the things that we traditionally might do. But through all of those things, the big focus is time. And so workload reduction may speak for itself, but things that lots of schools do, and it's no different, but actually writing them down is really, really an important part of the process, we found, because there was lots of things that you did that people didn't know about, or hadn't considered it as part of, well, actually, yeah, that is about wellness, or it is about creating more time. So things like having a clear vision, and so therefore cutting away lots of the things that you don't need, or a clear direction of travel, clear objectives is one, so that you don't get mission creep and those sorts of things, help just to stay focused on the things that matter. And there's lots of talk, isn't there, at the moment around Greg McGowan's book Essentialism, and Mary Myatt's View of Things, Greater Depth, kind of analysis, Back on Track, which kind of purports to some of these things that we've been doing for a while. So all of the centralised attention, so that teachers don't have to spend their breaks and lunchtimes doing all of that. That all came in the workload section, but that gave people some aspects of time back. The second factor would be about how we use that time, to making sure that training is really bespoke, and we're not just sitting in training days en masse listening to senior leaders tell us things. And then I think the things that you're referring to are some of the things that came in the latter aspect. And so we do things like mindfulness courses for staff, and that might be seen as an add-on, and those sort of things, but they're obviously optional, and people can opt in if they feel that that's what they need. But we also started to ask the staff, what could you do in order to save more time? Would you like me to highlight what some of those things are?
I would love to, Joe, because they are just beautiful. They do set your school apart from others. And Jonathan, I think, if you're going to advocate anybody who looks at well-being, and I love the work, world, and well-being. I love that, Jane. But it's these bits, these extra bits that are just manna from heaven, if you ask me. And I think if I came to your school and you were going to tell me some of the things that you do, I think that it would just it'd be wonderful. And I love your Man of 55. I love the fact that, and I think you're right, we do as leaders need to write down everything we do, because we do a lot. You're right, but and sometimes we forget it, and sometimes our staff just see that as the norm. You've really thought about that. But yeah, just go through some of the things you do, Jay, because I think they're brilliant.
Yeah, so again, looking at aspects of time, we kind of said, what are the annoying things that you have to really do on your weekends, or times that you could be spending with your family, and those sorts of things. So things like getting your car MOT'd, where we have a deal with the local garage, or you just drive to school and they'll pick it up for you, they'll take it away, do your MOT, and drop it back off at school. We have wellness weeks, one every half term, where we don't have any meetings at all. And initially we encouraged everyone just to go home at 3:15 and do something you love with someone you love. And that's taking a little bit of a turn now, actually, as we've started to refine and develop this, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But in those wellness weeks, one annoying thing, particularly for some of the male members of staff, it might be the same for female members of staff, was actually having to spend your Saturday mornings at the barbers, like in a long queue of people just waiting. So in those wellness weeks, we have a barber come to the school so you can get your hair cut, and that's something else that you don't have to do on the weekend when you're waiting. We have an ironing service and a whole number of things that just take out that time. If we're pressured about time and we've got barriers that get in the way of some of those things, then how can we just reduce that down? And so there's all manner of things. Our staff get a wellness day a year that they can book in for the reason, and these things have, you might say, well, why is it priority and stuff? And we've seen kind of staff absence drop significantly over the course of the time that we're doing that we've been doing these things. So there's lots of lovely things, and Danielle, who works with me and is the kind of wellbeing champion at our school, she's always going out, and we've had trips out for staff to go and walk with llamas and do various other things, which have come from the staff who have said that they just want that kind of sense of humanity and those sorts of things. And we were doing that pre-COVID, and it's probably going to be even more important that we pick some of those things up again post-COVID.
I just think that's brilliant. And I just like the idea of, where you notice where time is precious, because teachers do obviously spend a lot of their weekends doing, those kind of the jobs that they have to put off because we work in such a refined period of time that, there's a school, you recognise that and give them that time back, in the day. Jonathan, what do you think about that then? An ironing service and an MOT service in school? I think it's just brilliant.
It sounds great, isn't it? Where can I apply?
Yeah, Jay, do you have any jobs for Jonathan available?
Yeah,
I'm sure we can sort something out. We've always got room for great people, I'm sure.
Just out of interest, both of you, and I know Jay, you just touched on it, but this is a question for both of you. And Jay, you've obviously done a lot of this before, COVID, and a lot of this before this kind of turbulent year, the turbulent 15 months we've had. Just so a question to both of you. Well-being was really high on the last Ofsted framework, and Ofsted shouldn't be the reason why we consider well-being, and that's the workload. It's something we should just be thinking about anyway as humane leaders. But have we got the opportunity now? And again, I'll come to both of you, and Jay, I'll come to you first if that's okay. Have we got an opportunity now to really rethink how schools work and really rethink and reflect on the last 15 months to go, especially when we talk about remote learning and we talk about the offer that we've kind of created with technology and the way that we interact with parents and our pupils and our students and our teachers? Have we got the opportunity now to really reinvent what we've been doing before?
Yes, I think, but I think it is a balance. I mean, I think that what we need to, the kind of phraseology, I suppose, that we've been using at our school has been conscious and deliberate, and being really conscious and deliberate about how we're using our time and where our focus is going to go and the things that we want to do. And I think that that's probably also pertinent with the things that we want to change as a result of the experiences that we've had, but also what we wanted to keep, because I think there is a sense that people have missed something over time. It's probably to do with humanity, as I just mentioned, because it was it's a health crisis, isn't it? And it takes a humanitarian toll. And whether it's our most vulnerable students or whether it's our most vulnerable families or our staff, then people have been affected by what's happened. And so I think that the kind of sense of empathy and understanding, whilst still kind of recognising that we're running schools and we need to ensure that students can achieve and make progress, it gives us the opportunity. And so I think that really conscious and deliberate decisions about what we want to keep from our experiences, but also what we want to retain from what we want to do. And they might need to be recast or reframed slightly. But we were doing some great stuff before, and we don't want to lose all of that just because we've been through this extraordinary experience. I think the key is not to miss the opportunity to at least ask the question that you've just asked. Because it'll be just it would be a shame if we didn't learn any. Well, more than a shame, but we have to learn the lessons, don't we, going forward? But in doing that, I don't think that we should dismiss everything that was going on before, much of which was excellent.
Thanks, Jay. And I'm going to come back to you with a follow-up question. But Jonathan, you're working with schools and you're connecting with head teachers. Do you feel that when you're speaking with schools that people are really taking on board now, more so than ever, that sense of well-being and that sense of just looking around at their staff and kind of going, you know what, we need to do more a little bit here. We need to really think about the humanity within our culture. I mean, are you noticing that when you're having conversations with leaders?
Absolutely. It's been so important in the last year that, especially from a primary, as a primary head teacher, is understanding the culture of primary schools and why we do things and how we do the things. And what Jay was saying is what things do we need to change and what things do we need to adapt? What do we need to take away to make it simplified in schools? It's like parents' evening. I'm hoping from the changes in the last year that parents' evening will change a little bit from the old style parents' evening of you having the 5 minutes. Now you could probably have a mixture of Zoom meetings, etc. It'd be more accessible to the parents and more beneficial for the teachers. So I think there are changes are happening. Are we actually going to do those changes, or are we going to revert back to some of the things that we were doing before because we'd always done them? I think that's a thing that we need to be aware of, and how we can stop doing that and change some cultures. I like Jay's thing of the 3:30 going home in 1 week. I think most schools should be able to do those sort of things and just have time for that wellbeing. The MOT bit and the hairdressing and the ironing service, fantastic. I think I could have done with that.
Yeah, I think it is. And Jay, going back to what you said as a learning point, do you think, like most leaders, I mean, I reflect on my own practice during this period of this last 15 months. Jay, as a head teacher, do you think it's changed you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think that there's been a change in perhaps what good looks like in leadership, because I think that there was always a sense that those leaders and the kind of people that I suppose I looked up to in many ways were the ones that had a really clear plan. And everything was you planned out, and you could go through a process, and the school improvement and all of those sorts of things were crucial. And what has happened is that we've just had to improvise, and we haven't had any mental models for being able to do that. And our experiences have kind of shaped us as we've gone along, and so we've had to learn kind of crisis management leadership lessons as we go along. And again, to not miss the opportunities that have come with that, because some of the things that I'm sure you've done, that we've done, and heads across the country and leaders across the country, and actually at all sorts of levels, is you've had to really adapt, whether that's in a teacher in the classroom learning how to go remote online and still provide a high quality product. But also you couldn't do it on your own, could you? And so that kind of sort of sense of having this plan and then just leading people through the plan, the hierarchy had to be flattened, and we had to distribute the decision making and those, because things were happening so quickly, and we needed different areas of developmental expertise. So you had to build those levels of trust and so on. And I think that the outputs of that were perhaps appeared in some surprising places. So the response of parents has been superb in so many cases, where they've absolutely accepted that. I think previously I would always try and for everything to be perfect before it went out. And there's lots of reasons why you might like that to be the case. But now I think that during the last 15 months or so, we've kind of just been much more open and transparent, I think, with saying, this is what we know right now, this is where we are, I'm going to over communicate with you, but things may change. And parents have been absolutely receptive to that. And I think that they've kind of been pleased with the fact that they're in the loop, and that we're able to do those things. And then when we've had to say, well, actually, we thought it was going to be like that, but it's now different, and it's going to now be like this, they've been receptive to that because they understand the situation. Now, that's not to say that once we start to come out the other end, we just want to do it. But I think the level of over communication and making sure that parents are fully in the loop has been something to keep. I think that I'll certainly reflect on. I think that kind of sense of deliberate calm that some of the research talks about when leading in a crisis is that you have this position of responsibility, and even though you haven't got all of the answers, just being honest about that is crucial. And then combined with what I said earlier about empathy, and making sure that we are understanding and we're kind of human first in lots of our decision making and what we're trying to achieve. So I think that I hope that I had lots of those aspects as part of me before we came into that, but I think that it's kind of really resonated of what's important. It was a bit like watching the football the other night, and everyone said, well, football's not important anymore, is it? Because this is, it was another reminder how quickly we can get drawn back into just what we sort of perceive as normal.
And definitely, and if we do get back to the normal as we once knew, Jay, what have you missed as a leader? What are the things that you're really looking forward to getting back into your school?
I think it's just the connection, isn't it, with people. It's our SLT meetings are still through Zoom, and sort of just having that group of people, and we've experienced so much together. We've probably never been closer in terms of a team, but actually have rarely been in the same room as each other over that point. And I think that lots of the teaching staff have said that they kind of know the students and the families better than they ever did, perhaps. But have been further away from them in many instances. So I think that, and then I think it's just the when I say connection, it's those water cooler conversations, isn't it? It's the bumping into in the corridors, and as you walk around the school, it's being able to go to English department in a secondary school and all of the English teachers being in the same place, as opposed to them being dotted around. And you want to go and support staff and those ones, and just finding them when we're in pods and bubbles and so on becomes more difficult. And for middle leaders, that's the same because their teams are spread. And so I think it's just that kind of sense of connection. And schools are much more than a set of buildings, and I think that we've been able to focus on that stuff. But I think it's also brought home how important the buildings are, and that sense of community, and the school having a sense of place in its context is a really powerful thing.
So we're coming to the end now, Jane, and I can only appreciate, I can only thank you for coming in and spending some time, because I know it's really, really busy for you at the moment. I know it's a challenging time for all secondary schools with CAGs and tags and all of those things. I try and end the show by asking all guests to talk a little bit about that inspirational educational figure that's that you remember on your journey into either into teaching, that's someone who really inspired you and it kind of brought things home to you. Last week I was joined by two principals from the United States, and one of them mentioned the support assistant in their school when they were very, very young, and making sure they had that defining kind of moment to kind of see them as who they really were, and to make them recognize their worth. So I'm gonna obviously just remind people how to follow and get in contact. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about, and hopefully I can come to you with your kind of maybe that person who really inspired you. So if that's all right, Jay, if I give you a minute, are you all right to think about that person you just kind of go, yeah, it was them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll try and whittle it down to one.
Good. So I just want to obviously thank everybody who's joined me. We're in the last 15 minutes of the Late Show on Tuesday night with myself, Dan Edwards. on Teachers Talk Radio. If you do want to follow all of the shows and listen back, you can do that obviously by the Podbean app or wherever you get your podcasts from. But most importantly, if you want to listen back with ease and listen back to all of the shows that we have available, you can go to www.ttradio.org. And of course, you can follow Teachers Talk Radio on Twitter, TT Radio 2021. And I'm going to share with you where you can follow Jay. But before we do that, Jay, let's talk about Ned Talks. Can we talk a little bit about Ned Talks and what's next for Ned Talks? Because I was sad not to be a part of that. But Ned Talks, what's the plan? Is there another one in the pipeline?
So it looks like we're going to resurrect Ned Talks from September. We're hoping to be back live again. We have been doing them up until the last Educating Northants conference in March. We have been doing them half-termly up until that point on Zoom since the crisis began, but we're hoping to go live again from September if we're allowed. And so an incredible opportunity for why it works, God only knows really, in the sense that we're asking educators, having all of what I've just said about making time for teachers, we put this gathering together on a Friday night from 7:30 till 9:30, and yet we have 200 teachers turn up to listen to local or further afield people come and talk to them about education.
No, I think it's fantastic. And again, it's about providing, isn't it, for staff really quality CPD and making it available to them with a great sense of ease. So no, if you do want to find out more about Ned Talks, and it's not just open to Northamptonshire teachers, obviously the link gets shared far and wide on Twitter, and there's loads of ways you connect with Jay, and Jay will obviously let you know before the close of the show how to connect. But so Jay, that inspirational figure then, that person who kind of inspired you to be the leader or the teacher and the PE teacher that you were. Who was it for you?
Yeah, I might talk quickly and have more than one, but I'm going to. It might sound, I don't know what it might sound, but it's my dad, and he's the best teacher still that I've ever seen. He taught me both in year 8 and 9, but also he taught me A-level history, and even in like watching him, how hard he worked at home, and I kind of had a good impression of what teachers has to do as a history teacher, and the marking and those sorts of things. But the kind of cultural capital that he built in us, me and my sister, by like the trips that we went out to cathedrals and castles and embedded in local history, and just that passion for his subject, and that kind of instills something in you when you see somebody both with the kind of subject, the intensity around wanting to know everything there is to know about their subject, but also the kind of humanity and the ability to get that across, to make other people feel the same. And I've rarely seen it since, and the ones that I'll mention, I then went to St Luke's, where Ted Ragg was kind of the director of education, who used to write on the back of the TES, and was I was playing football down there, and so on. And Ted was involved with the football setup, so we knew him well. And then when in my first couple of teaching jobs, I had 2 mentors that I'll mention, Andrew Harding and Dave Bundy. And similarly to the things that I've said about my dad, they were both expert teachers. Andrew, historian as well. Dave Bundy, English teacher, having been a PE teacher previously. But it was just the quality of instilling a love of the subject and a love of learning. And I asked today on the PE interviews how important fun was in a lesson. And really what I got from all of the people that I've just mentioned is that the enjoyment came from learning. And the enjoyment came from gaining knowledge and knowing more stuff. And so I'll leave it there.
No, wonderful. Thank you, Jay. And thank you so much for joining me. I know you're really busy, but before you do go, where can people find you and your school on Twitter and social media? And how do people connect with Jay Davenport?
I'm on Twitter at jdav20, JAYDAV20. My school is at manor_school. And that's where we are. We're around and about those places. I still work with the at Edgy Northants team as well, but and that's where all of the Ned Talk stuff will come through at Edgy Northants.
So Jay, before we go, obviously there's a big game of football taking place on Friday evening. Any thoughts for the score, England versus Scotland?
Well, I'm sure it'll be 4-4.
I'm going for a 6-6 draw.
It's probably best just to kind of stay out of that one, isn't it? It's There's some arguments that you don't probably want to start off. So let's go for a great game.
A great game, and it's taking part that counts. And
absolutely,
they're all winners in the end, aren't they?
and all of those
things. Yeah. Anyway, Jay, thanks so much. Wonderful. I know you're really busy. Thanks for taking the time, and I do hope you have a kind of a smooth end to the rest of this term, and whatever you do in the summer, make sure you have a really good break, and I'm sure we'll connect on Twitter again before the end of the summer term. And do take care, and again, thanks for your support on Twitter and also taking your time to join us this evening. So thanks, Jay Davenport, an amazing head teacher at Manor School.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jay, for joining us. You take care.
You. Cheers.
So I've been really lucky today to be joined by two fantastic guests, and I knew you'd be really pleased to listen to them talk. Obviously, I think we did drop out a little bit of the show, so I can only apologise for that. So thank you so much for Jonathan at headteacherchat.com. And if you do want to follow Jonathan on Twitter and find out all about Head Teacher Chat and get involved in the conversations, you can do. And as I just grab my phone now and just have a quick reminder. So yeah, if you want to follow Head Teacher Chat, it's simple, at Head Teacher Chat, and the website is headteachers.org, and there's lots of fantastic stuff on there, lots of up to date with news and bits and pieces like that. There's also a fantastic Instagram channel you can follow, and again, if you do take a look at some of the planners that headteachers.org are organizing, that'd be, all power to you, because they are fantastic. And as we had said before, from Jay and from Jonathan, we all know that time is becoming more and more pressured. So having anything that makes our well-being a little bit better, either our self-organisation or, if you're a leader, hopefully you might listen back to Jay's work about work, world and well-being, and think about some of the fantastic things that are going on in the Manor School to move forward. Anyway, here at Teachers Talk Radio, we like to make sure that we share and celebrate lots of different things that are out there in educational services. So before we finish the last couple of minutes of the show, we have got a quick message from a quick couple of people that want to share their work with the Teachers Talk Radio audience.
Introducing Amanda Davey. Amanda is one of the first specialist teacher assessors for dyscalculia in the UK and offers dyscalculia tutoring and bespoke training for schools. With 26 years of teaching and tutoring experience in the UK, Amanda offers specialist online tuition focused on building confidence and developing skills. Amanda also offers online and face-to-face training on dyscalculia for educators, informing practitioners as to how to identify children that may have dyscalculia and how to support them in class. Find out more about Amanda and what she can offer you at www.amanda-davey-dyscalculia.co.uk. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.CRE8TIVEresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative resources made for teachers by teachers.
And so that's it for another Tuesday. Thank you so much to all of my guests, Jay Davenport, Jonathan from Head Teachers Chat, and of course you for listening. And I'd really appreciate those who have left messages, have tuned in through the Podbean app or listened on a different platform. So thank you very much, and for your messages, your support, your thumbs up, and all of those bits and pieces, just to make sure the last hour and a half went smoothly. Again, I'd like to thank headteacherschat.com, Jonathan, Jay Davenport for joining me, and I'll be back next Tuesday with more guests and more conversation. So until then, it's Tuesday night, it's nearly 9:30, and I'm sure we've all got something to do for tomorrow. But whatever you are doing this week, please take care, keep smiling, and you know what? It'll be the summer holidays before we know it. See you next Tuesday, everybody.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.